and perhaps we can, we can think about what enables our approach or what constrains or challenges our approach if we can get this going. Lanelle, do you want to go for it first?
I'm trying to think where I fit in. Because I think I'm probably kind of like a bit of both. For me, it's about student engagement. So, and them engaging with the material with you together, I think is what for me is what I think about. But that they're there to work with you to develop learning skills and strategies so that they can learn the content by themselves. So it depends on whether I'm in a lecture or tutorial in our context, I think, because in a lecture setting, I get them to do some things on their own, and then we bring it together and we get feedback and we pull it all together. And in a tutorial, I'm more of a facilitator. I'm doing less of the work to a certain extent, I think, when I'm working with them. So yes, so I think it's probably, I don't know where I fit in. I think it might be a combination of both, but really seeing that the students have a role to play, and they need to be actively participating in my lecture. Otherwise, I don't just sitting there listening, they don't get anything out. So giving them activities to do, I guess, is the way that I kind of do it in both settings.
It sounds like you're a bit of student/learning centered.
Yes, I think so.
Student/learning centered, and of course, you mentioned that you mentioned something about your pedagogy, right? I didn't get that. What did you? Do you want to just?
With respect to what, in the way that
Yeah.
So, yes, I think the thing that I did mention was very much for me is teaching students learning strategies specific to our discipline together with them. So initially showing them step by step how to go through it, and then slowly pulling back and then getting them to do that first, and then having a discussion around it. So helping them to deconstruct the principle or the concept, what its various parts are, how they relate, what do they relate to other learning, that prior learning that they've got, and things like that. Yeah.
And of course, then that's your enabler to your approach, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So shall we move to somebody else who wants to come in? Lorraine, Rachel, Santi, Neil? Anyone?
I think what's interesting, Lanelle, when you started and you said, okay, the first thing was, I don't know where, and then a little bit of both. I think maybe that is the nature, and maybe we get stuck when we have to think of either or.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so. I totally, Rita, that's a job. And I think that is what it should be. It should be a mixture of everything, not just specifically one thing. And I think it's for me very much a lot of the things that I've over the years have seen is doing things with students, activities with students in the context of the discipline. So here's a skill in the context of my discipline, so that they sometimes take it on more easily, but that can be challenging. Sometimes they aren't. You have to, and that's what I've learned is you have to be very explicit why you're doing things and what the benefits are, and you can't just tell them once. It has to be every time you teach until they know that this is your way of teaching, and it's so that they can make the knowledge their own, because I can't pass it on to them.
I think Rachel had a hand up. Sorry.
Yes. Good afternoon. I am a librarian.
Right.
We do teach.
But you do research, right?
We do teach.
Yeah.
we do get some students, you know, where lecturers gives us time to teach their students. And I think I would have loved to be student-centered, but we are more learning-centered because you've got this little time. In this little time, you need to do so many things. Like I need to teach the students a skill that hopefully they will use right through their university career. There's one thing that we don't have at Wits, you know what other universities do have is first year students, they get to learn how to use the library and the library resources. Like we've got all these databases and different ways of doing things, but nobody to teach them how to. So when we do, when a lecturer requests us to do that, they give us like 1 hour or 45 minutes. And the resources that we've got is so many. And especially when we are teaching in the beginning of the year, first year students, that becomes a problem because some of our students, they are not familiar with say with computers. They know how to work on their cell phone, but not how to work with a mouse. So when you do that type of thing, you need to give them, and you've got the students on different levels. You get the student that comes from the rural areas, from the township. Then you've got the students that come from the private schools, or, you've just got a mixture. So when you teach, we don't have the time. It's just a quick learn the skill. Hopefully they'll know it for the rest of their university career, because sometimes they only get it in their first year, their honors year, or their postgraduate year. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Rita, do you want to come in there? Because I'm a bit confused. I don't know whether it's learning-centered or teacher-centered or educator-centered.
No. I think what Rachel, I mean, something that I picked up as well, Rachel, is that it's a strong focus on, being the teacher to get over what you need to get over at that moment in time. But at the same time, your underlying aim for all of this is for the learning there is student-centeredness, you using the best ways possible to get the student to gain what you feel they need to gain in the limited time that you both have to engage. But I think you raise such important things that if we do want to value something as learning or even student-centered, or even for the well-being of the teacher, then these things should become part of the practices of when students come in. Because you're so right, a lot of the postgraduates, and I don't know if others will agree in this space, they struggle to even access the library. And maybe what we need to account for is how many people are really using the valuable resources you have, and why aren't they getting there? I don't know if you want to respond, Rachel, or somebody else. Yeah.
So maybe we can, Rachel, go for it. Sorry.
Yes, because when we teach our, when we are asked for honor students to teach honor students, the first thing they want to ask is, why didn't you teach us this in our first year? We don't have teaching time. And we can only help the student when the student comes to the library. And we find out that an honor student tells you that I've never used the library before. And then you ask them, what sources did you use? And now my lecturer gave us links. Now, when I'm talking to, when a lecturer asks me to teach their class, the first thing I say, please don't give them links. Give them, let me show them how to get to those, how to do it themselves. You see, to help the student to find what you want them to teach, but on their own, instead of just giving it to them. So the students are not using it because they don't know about it. Some of the students, they come in, they've never used the library before. Yeah.
So Rachel, Linnell's made such an important contribution in the chat. But what Rachel is saying, everybody, is so important that sometimes when we look at the concept of learning-centered or teaching-centered or student-centered. We just go towards the one that we think is more heartfelt and we're doing justice.
Yes.
But
Yes.
some of our underlying ways of being, like that way of, as Rachel said now, which I never thought about before, that when we provide links, we actually we are inhibiting learning from taking place across that room, Naz, as you said in your introduction. We actually are perpetuating some of our social patterns of poor behavior in teaching and learning. I don't know if somebody wants to say something. Linnell, maybe you want to contribute because you. But yeah, it was just a thought that struck me, Rachel, when you said that.
So, Rita, I think it's just so interesting because while I teach, I have 3 children who have been through the system or in the system. And my son hasn't had a lot of, so he's busy starting his master's. He's been doing mechanical engineering, and I know that he really struggled with some of the things. And he made a comment that, oh, there's not so many things on the library. And I thought maybe it's just because you don't know where they are and how to get to them. And I really like what Rachel said about how by just giving them the link, we stop them from actually going to look for it themselves, and rather giving them a short little how to go and look for it might be very helpful. To do that. And I'd never thought of that. So we don't really do a lot of that use a lot of that in our degree because it's so specific to the profession. And we only do it if you're doing honours or masters, not if you're just doing the normal PGDA 4th year if you want to become a CA. So it's something I've never really considered, but because we don't really look at that many scholarly articles. But I think it would be useful because they get introduced to a couple of things in first year, but if you don't use it, you're never going to remember it going forward.
Yeah, I'm just curious as well. Thanks, Linnell. Lorraine, you are in community dentistry. What about your approach?
Perhaps Lorraine's not in the conversation.
Yeah, I was just curious, but some valid points made there, Rachel and Linnell. And the thing is, I don't know, but if we're just focusing on, getting those skills over and getting the teaching done and all of that, and Rita, as you suggested, I mean, there's underlying aspects related to this, then is there not consequences, that reflect a deeper complexity? Because that's a complexity, right, around our approaches.
Yeah, I think you're making a very good point, Nazira, because I think that's exactly what complexity is, is that very often small acts have large unpredicted consequences, or large acts have no consequences at all, right? And I think, or very little few consequences. So, and I think Rachel is probably alluding to a very good point in the sense of, the phenomenon of how full many curricula are, so and that only 1 hour, in the first year is allocated. I mean, my portfolio at a previous academic department was research, undergrad and postgraduate research, and already moved. Okay, so are we supposed to go back now because it seems like we are going to elsewhere?
We will just shift into